Ask yourself the right questions. Tell yourself the truth. Don't run away from the truth. So when you ask yourself the right questions and you answer truthfully, then you understand where you are.
Hello viewers, it's me again, Emmanuel. You know how we're doing it here, bringing you all the best on the LHC pod. And again, I'm not alone. I have Lola with me, who has refused to take the mantle of always introducing or beginning the show.
You should consider it an honor.
Okay, but first of all, chop your knuckle. That is how we start.
We'll change this format in 2025.
Guys, we can all be feminists. That was what we discussed last week. But you know what? You also need to learn some of the things. They
didn't say we should all be manists.
But again, we can begin that advocacy, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All
right. So, as you know, we're bringing you all the best, informative, entertaining gist, and here you get to learn so much from. It is the LSC pod, like you know. And today we have a wonderful guest in our midst, and as usual, Lola will be introducing her. Don't go nowhere.
Yep.
Stay put. All right, welcome back. Yeah, definitely, Lola.
Welcome. So,
who do we have on the show?
We have an amazing guest with us today.
Okay.
In fact, all right, so we have an exceptional, delectable guest with us. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I introduce Funmi. Welcome, Funmi.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
you for coming.
How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank God, and you?
Oh, thank God.
And just to say, she's a polyglot.
Oh, really? Wow.
And maybe she would say hello to our French viewers.
Oh, nice. That's a flex.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis ravie d'être ici.
Oh, okay.
I didn't tell you, don't worry.
I'm lost. Right? Yeah, this is very entertaining. And today, what do we have, Lola?
Oh yeah, so today we're talking about professionalism and career advancement. So we are going to talk about career growth and specifically what it's all about. Let's take it from there. So to your view, what is career growth? How would you define career growth? And what are the things that people need to factor in when it comes to building a career?
Well, when we talk about growth, it's the opposite of being stagnant, right? So it's basically starting out in your career in this particular field and growing, evolving, whatever that means to you, because growth can be also or have a different meaning for different people.
Yes.
So for some people, growth is about how much money they're going to make. For other people, it's about the fulfillment or the impact that they're making. So I think it's a personal definition, but it's definitely the opposite of stagnating.
Nice. So basically, it's all about moving forward.
Yes, moving forward.
That's good. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, basically
What's the French word? Bienvenue.
Merci.
Yeah, so sometimes people go into career without even knowing the path that they intend to take. First of all, when they get out of school fresh and everything is to intern. Others are able to set clear goals. So before they leave school, they already know what they are aspiring for. And they aim at it and they want to they start almost immediately. For others, it takes them time to find their reading and then find a place, especially in a situation where job availability is very minimal, right? So people just venture into things before they, at the end of the day, settle themselves. For instance, so I would ask, for freshers who are just beginning their career journey, what do you have to tell them in terms of how they should position themselves or prepare themselves for that? career development?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is not to be worried when you don't have it all figured out, because I think the most important thing is where you end up, right? So you might start off really quickly and at the end of the day still stagnate at some point, and somebody who started much later would, progress faster than you did. So it's there's no rush, there's no hurry. I understand also that the job market is a bit tough, so some people are unable to get opportunities immediately. And so, whatever your hands find to do, really start off with that, because oftentimes it's as we start to work on certain things that we understand what our strengths and our weaknesses are, right? Or work in a particular industry, that we understand if we're cut out for it or not. So start off with where you are, and then start to understand if it works for you or not. Yeah, I think that's the first step.
Yes.
So now you've outlined what one needs to do. So what the next stage, the natural next stage would be, okay, so you're having a career, you're running a career rather, and you're making progress, you want to see growth. So what are the indicators, or what would you say are the key indicators towards the need to make certain adjustments, maybe to change a job or to acquire new skills or to basically just step up on the current role? What would you say are some triggers that would be needed, or would be signs rather, for someone to make such changes?
Okay, so I think you need to know what you want.
Okay.
And when I say know what you want, so
Know what
okay,
you
you've
want,
been on the
okay.
job for a while now.
Yes.
You need to have aspirations, because if not, what are you measuring, your
Yes.
growth with, right? So you need to
Yeah,
understand what exactly do you desire. You also need to, look around you, what happens within your environment, or what's in the work culture, right? So
Okay.
how long do people stay in certain roles?
Yes.
Are you in average, or are you below average? So just try to evaluate and understand where you are. And also, I think the most important thing is, how do you feel about where you are? Because if I use myself as an example,
Okay.
most times when it was time for me to grow, I would say I became uncomfortable,
Yeah,
with
sure.
just where I was and what I was doing. So there was a
Yes.
desire for more. There's always a desire for more when it's time to grow, So it's just also acknowledging that,
Okay.
and then understanding, okay, so what are the options now? Are there succession plans, for example, within the organization? So do you have clarity on what the next steps can be?
Okay.
But if they're none, then what exactly do you desire to do? So I think it also starts with a desire, because you need to know.
So there has to be that desire.
You have to have a desire, yeah.
To grow.
Basically, if you don't have that desire, you remain on one position for life.
Pretty much.
And at the end of the day, you just look at it and say, okay, I spent 12, 13, 15, 20.
Doing the same thing.
Yes,
Whoa,
doing the same
that's
thing.
a lot of stagnation.
All over and over again. I think that I had an experience yesterday, 2 days ago. I went to a ministry and wanted to get in touch with the highest in that ministry.
Okay.
And
The guy at the top.
yeah, I was told that the person wasn't on seat. I then asked who is the PS.
Okay.
I'd like to meet the permanent secretary.
Oh,
and I
okay.
was also told that he is not on seat. And then I asked who is the director. Right? And it just seemed to me the kind of responses I was getting, obviously, was just it's like there's a straitjacketed way of operation.
Okay.
And the person says, oh, because you were not included into the visit, the plan, we cannot attend to you. And I said, I traveled all the way from the southwest to the central, north central, one of the north central states, for an assignment. And you cannot say just because my schedule wasn't included in the official visit, I would not be attended to. And we went back and forth. And it's as simple as just calling the director to say, oh, there is a add-on.
Okay.
An add-on to these, and can we look at these and then discuss further?
Discuss,
But that wasn't the case. So I had to go out of my way so I excused myself from the office, went out, seek the director's number, called him immediately, had that conversation with him, and he told me, immediately assigned me to someone who would see to it that my mission in the state is accomplished.
Interesting.
This conversation again brings to the fore how people work. So for that person in question in that office, he has a straight-jacketed mind. Apparently, this is what he's been asked to do. No innovation whatsoever. Nothing, right? And we have people like that. How can we begin to... My question is, just for viewers, if you find yourself in that situation, what would you advise that these people, and I know that organizations differ, especially when you're dealing with government parastatals and all, how would you tell people to work? Because there's a place of innovation. There's a place of not just limiting yourself to what you've been asked to do, taking initiatives and stuff like that. Would it be the same? Would you recommend that in that kind of situation?
Okay, so for me, I think people need to look beyond their job descriptions. I always say that, because if you limit yourself, then you're also limiting yourself from learning things that might be required in your next level. And so I always use myself as an example because it has worked for me, right? I'm not one to say, oh no, sorry, this is not part of my JD. I believe in succeeding, right? So if you're given a task, if you have a goal, I believe that, okay, all hands on deck to succeed. So whatever is required. And again, it's about having an entrepreneurial mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, if it were your business and you did not have a cleaner, would you leave the office dirty?
Of course
right?
not.
You would have to clean up, you would have to do things. So, and it's in the doing that you actually develop other skills. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how well planned out your life is, I believe that there's a God factor, right? So you also need to be flexible, because perhaps this opportunity is to prepare you, and because you're not keying into the opportunity, then you're stagnant because you're not ready for your next level, right? So it's all about attitude. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not understand that it gets to a point where your skills are no longer enough, but your attitude actually makes the difference. And for me, I'm more willing to work with someone who has a good attitude than someone who is skilled and has the wrong attitude, because I feel that you can build the person who does not have the required skills. It may take time, but I'm willing to, work with them for them to grow than to work with somebody who is not interested in learning or has the wrong attitude and all of that.
Speaking about attitude, what are the right attitude for you? Maybe you just might want to itemize some of the attitudes that people should have, especially when a generation, a decade, or where we have the Gen Zs, and then the kind of attitude they have towards work. Sometimes it's will I say cause for questioning sometimes, or how they manage. So what are the right attitudes that people can imbibe, can learn to grow?
Okay, I would say one, be humble. Be humble. And so in Japan, or in some Japanese organizations, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, when you get to a certain level, or if you are a certain age and you haven't hit or reached a certain level, you start to be they start to demote you. So for
wow.
example, if you're not at top management level, then they retrograde you, right? So you start coming down until you retire. So what happens if you were the kind of boss that, was very disconnected from the people, or arrogant, or used to bring people down and all of that, and then you start reporting to one of your team members. So humility is key, because I've also seen that you never know who can put in a word for you.
Absolutely.
A lot of times when people come into organizations, they're looking at particular people, and we all make this mistake. We feel that, XYZ can help our destinies. But sometimes it may just be a driver, people that have information, a PA, whatever. So you need to be humble enough to relate with everyone, and also listen to everyone, to take feedback from everyone.
Yes.
You also have to be a good listener. I think it's important, because a lot of times we want to be heard. But the truth is, you can only even win an argument or have the right argument when you listen to what people are saying, and also what they're not saying. Because a lot of things are not said, but you are able to decode if you're a good listener. So you listen with your eyes also, if you can. But so be a good listener. Also, just observe what happens, understand the culture, and understand the environment, and also know yourself.
Interesting. So speaking about knowing yourself, there's this thing where we've talked about people stagnating, not moving forward, or having a certain fixed mindset at work that is not enabling their growth. Would you attribute some of this, or would you say some of it has to do with being afraid to move forward? I know we've heard some people have the fear of success. I know it's a thing, especially in work psychology circles and all that. So how would you say fear plays into some of these things that prevent people from actually pursuing career growth and choosing to remain in a certain position for so long?
So fear is definitely an enemy of growth.
Word.
Fear is an enemy of growth, and
yes,
unfortunately, fear does camouflage itself. So recently I was watching something where they were talking about different manifestations of fear, and so anger is a form of manifestation of fear. Procrastination is a manifestation of fear. And I'm a Christian. The Bible says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So recently what came to mind is that the opposite of power, love, and a sound mind is fear, right? So if you're fearful, then you're reacting, which is not good as well, right? So you also need to be able to face your fears, because until you face your fears, you would not even know whether the fear is real or not. Because a lot of times we're afraid of things that will never ever happen. Sometimes we're afraid of things that may happen. But at the end of the day, will it kill you? So it's because the truth is, if you want to be average, and I remember this about maybe 8 years ago or something, I had to join a meeting, a top level meeting where I had prepared a presentation and all of that. And so obviously I was not at that level, but I was to join the meeting. And as I was going in, or as I was preparing for it, I was just like, everybody around me was so calm and relaxed, right? Because they didn't have the same the same mission that I had. And I was stressed, and I was just like, oh my God, this is a lot of stress. And so what came to mind, what dropped in my spirit is, but if you want to grow, if you want to be at a certain level, then you have to experience discomfort. If you want to be comfortable, then okay, be comfortable, but you're going to remain where you are. So if you want to grow, you're going to experience discomfort. And so I understood that, okay, it's not going to come easy. And a lot of people that are doing it are actually doing it afraid. You know what I mean? So you just do it.
Just do it.
You do it. I mean, God helping you, but you do it because it has to be done, right? So face your fears. Ask yourself, okay, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And then if I don't do this, what can happen as well? You know, so yeah.
Facing your fears.
So face your fears.
I think for me, I think one key takeaway from her conversation is just looking straight in the eyes of the fear and just taking action. I think that the opposite of being afraid to do something is taking action, right? So in her case, preparing for something, and sometimes it brings discomfort, but having that mental capacity to say, you know what, come what may, I'm going to dive into it and get it done, irrespective of what happened. Sometimes you might pick blisters. I'm just saying, sometimes you get wounded, you feel the
fire,
and everything.
Like they say, there will be consequences.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you come out and you come out stronger. You come out better. You come out even more. And then you look back and say, oh, I didn't know that it was this easy. You understand? Sometimes you can get in and then you find out that, oh, you didn't even find out that it was this easy and everything. So that is very key takeaway. That's a very key takeaway for me. Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll be back. All right, welcome back. If you've scrolled fast forward to this point, would like to tell you that we've been discussing growth in career and how to navigate fear, right? Yes. And we have our guest, Funmi, who is a top-level manager in our midst, and we brought her here to share her experience, a wealth of knowledge with us. And thank you once again, Funmi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've given us so much dose. My question to you is...
You still have questions?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
How should people build their growth mindset?
So, good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think reading can help.
Okay.
Surrounding yourself also with the right people.
Okay.
So sometimes when you operate at a certain level, it's difficult for you to see beyond where you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when you connect to people who are where you want to go to, you see things differently because of that connection. So I think reading and also the connections that you have, obviously you can't be aspiring for certain things and still be operating at base level. You have to come up higher in your way of thinking, because a lot happens with the mind.
It does.
Yes, truly. And the mind is actually a driving force. And so I think you also need to have a goal.
Okay.
So you may not, as you start out in your career, you may not have it all figured out. That's fine. But at some point, you need to start having a clearer picture of where it is you want to go.
Yes.
Not because you have the skills to get there, but at least just because this is what you see yourself doing.
Yes.
And I think if we spend a little more time listening to ourselves, and understanding what we have, because the problem we also have is that we spend a lot of time focusing on what other people are doing as opposed to what we're supposed to be doing. Right? And so we're judging ourselves based on other people's successes, and that's a problem, because we need to first of all identify who we are, what we have, and what we can do with what we have. So after you have identified all of that, then you can start using that and matching it with your desires. Because sometimes you can desire things. I believe we're built to do so much, so you may have a 9-to-5, you may have, a side hustle, you may have an NGO, you may be creating impact in your community. So you just have to find out how to make it work, right? So if your job doesn't give you that fulfillment because you need to eat, then why not start something out on the side, where you can also use your gifts, use your skills, use your talent to do what you need to do.
I think at this point, it will be interesting to find out. You've been a manager for a while, so you've seen professionals at different levels, and so let's even extrapolate and find out, as a manager, what differentiates those who do well in their career growth and those who do not. What are those things they do differently?
Okay, for me, I would say that people who are dependable and committed stand out. So as a manager, you want to know that if I give you this task, you're going to deliver. I don't want to have to run after you to get feedback on what it is you're doing. So people who are reliable actually tend to grow, right? Obviously, if they develop themselves as well. But I think reliability is really dependability. Reliability something key, because if you don't have that, and you're skilled, but we can't depend on you as a manager, then it can't work. Another key point is somebody who wants to understand the vision and not just do their thing. Because there's a global vision, for example, there's a global goal, right? The organization has its mission has its vision, objectives, etc. And so you are not employed to do your thing. You are employed to contribute towards the global vision, towards the objectives of the organization.
Absolutely.
And so you need to be somebody who can also work under authority and also understand what authority requires. Do you understand? So these are some of the things that are key. Because some people are so intelligent that they cannot take feedback, correction, or even direction from somebody. And no manager wants to have to deal with that. As intelligent as you are, I would rather you're not so intelligent, but you're teachable and we can grow together than you coming to do your thing.
That's fantastic. And what would you have for those who'd rather rely on eye service to catch their managers as against having to do their job?
Interesting.
Yes, because again, the climes where we are seems to be some managers pander to such eye service type of people who maybe have their ears and stuff like that. What would you say with regards to that, or how would you advise those people? Because again, sometimes for me, I just feel like you might have the ears of that particular manager because of how, rather than focusing on the substance, you focus on other things, and that manager might leave. Where does that leave you as a staff or one who wants to grow their career?
So I was going to talk about the event where the manager leaves. What do? You spend so much time trying to deceive, because let's call it what it is. You spend so much time trying to deceive somebody instead of using that time wisely and actually creating value, because I believe that value always speaks. And another thing is, know what works for you. But for me, as a person of faith, I believe that my rewarder is not necessarily my manager. Because my manager may not even see the talents that I have. And really, everybody has their own assessment of people. So you can't blame people for not seeing that, you have this talent, right? Maybe whatever you call talent does not work for them. However, I believe that if you're diligent and you're doing the right thing, then eventually the value that you're adding will speak for you, so that even if that manager leaves, other people will notice the value you're adding. So don't spend time focusing on a person. The problem is we're so much in a hurry today to get to where we think we need to be, forgetting that, first of all, how did you determine that, after 2 years, you need to be an MD or a CEO? The CEOs of today, how long did it take them to get to where they're going to, and all of that? Because there's capacity to build. You need to build your character. There's so many things, because okay, you might get there in 2 years, but can you sustain it, right? So because we're in a hurry, we just want to rush everything, and we don't want to take time to do the right thing. So we'd rather do the eye service because it might get you there faster, but it will not sustain you.
Exactly.
Right. So unless if you're working for like in a one-man business for one person, that will never die. You know.
And that is not possible, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That makes a whole lot of sense to me, particularly. One other thing that people within the corporate organization deal with is the fear. I know we've discussed the fear. Is the fear of rejection. Sometimes you're feeling, am I good enough? Can I stand this? Can people will they listen to me and stuff like that? So how do you think that they should manage that kind of fear in particular?
Okay, so we talked about having a desire.
Yeah.
We talked about having a goal.
Yeah.
So wanting to go somewhere, right? Let that be your focus, so that when you come across all the obstacles and all of that, you know where you're going, right? So that drives you. That is what is driving you. What is driving you is not, because the thing is, if you don't have something strong, right, then fear would make you run away. And there's so many things to be afraid of, right? Because you might be afraid of people, you might be afraid of the crowd, you might be afraid, but remembering that this is my goal would help you do what you need to do. And also, identity is very important. We don't talk a lot about it, but identity is key, because if you don't know who you are, then fear has its place in your life. Even when you know who you are, right? It's still I mean, life can be intimidating, right? We all have our fears. Nobody is above fear, right? But knowing who you are is also important, because it helps you stay grounded. It helps you also not try to be who you're not. Because sometimes, I was talking with a friend recently, and I was telling her how when I was in France, when I started out in my career, there's this thing about being dynamic, where everybody is very dynamic. So the way they talk, the way they walk, and that was never me, right? I'm an introvert, even though I'm in marketing, so I do public speaking and all of that. But I'm not like a typical, flashy marketing professional, right?
So you're supposed to be out there.
You're supposed to be out there, and so for the longest time, I felt bad about not being dynamic enough. So, for example, when a recruiter would call my line, I would have to so if I'm at home just chilling, I'll have to sit up and I'll be like, oh, hello, bonjour, because you have to be like, and then I put in so much energy that I don't even have to do all these things, because that's not where my strength lies, right? But finally, I got to understand that that's not who I am, right? I'm a calm person. So, and I need my energy to do certain things, right? And so understanding all of that helps me function differently, right? So I'm not trying to be who I'm not, because I don't even have the capacity to sustain that. I am trying to become who I'm supposed to be. So using what I have to become the next version, that my next level requires. So identity is so important, but a lot of times we just think that, oh, this is the person I need to be like. So if I just do this like that, if I sound like this, if I dress like this, because we put a lot also into our outward appearance, thinking that is going to solve the issue, even though there's a place for that, right? Because you can't come in looking all shabby and all, but there's a place to also understand who you are, so that you're authentic, right? Because there's something about human beings, we detect things a lot. So you can sense when something not right about somebody. They're saying the right things, but there's a disconnect somewhere. I don't know what it is, but I can just feel there's
when
this
you say the vibe is off.
Yeah, the vibe is off, because the person is maybe trying to be or sound like or whatever, project the wrong thing, instead of simply showing up the way they are. Obviously working on your weaknesses. We're not saying that you should, because if you want to grow, you have to also work on your weaknesses. But and
that brings me to the question of branding, because I know it's a jargon that's been overused. So everybody's talking
You
about
mean personal branding.
personal branding.
Yeah.
And what is the place of personal branding in career growth and development? And are people truly what they project themselves to be? Because today, to be very frank and honest with you, I just read some write-ups on LinkedIn and I just shake my head and move on.
You know it's fake.
you just know it. While someone is setting cameras, you're looking at the pictures and they are looking all, you see that these pictures took so much work, time and money in, but at the end of the day, if you are called to the table, can you deliver all these AI assisted write-ups?
I like the AI assisted write-ups. Yes. So I'm in marketing, right? So branding is important.
Okay.
But I think don't brand vapor, right?
That's a good one.
You need to brand substance.
Yes.
So have your substance, then afterwards brand it and present it to people. Sometimes you don't even need to brand. You just need to, build something and stand for something.
Yes.
Because a lot of times when you're in the corporate space, for example, or even just in your churches, your communities or whatever, people sort of like know XYZ. What do you stand for, right? Your attitude, your interaction with people speaks for you. You can't. True. So don't spend too much time branding. Develop yourself. Add value where you can, so that when people encounter you, your brand is speaking through you, because that's who you are. It's connected to your identity. Do you understand? So you're not trying to be somebody else. You are who you are. And then after that, maybe because you don't have enough visibility, now do the branding, and create awareness around it, but don't try and brand just to be seen. And that's something I learned during COVID, because at that time everybody was doing personal branding and I nearly fell into that trap. I nearly fell into that trap because I think it was from a place of fear as well. Everybody was like, oh my God, if I get laid off tomorrow, like let me have something, let me start working on something and all of that. And I almost fell into that trap. But what happened was, what came to mind, or what I believe God had led me to do in COVID, was to start mentoring young professionals. So I just put it up on my status that, I'd like to mentor young professionals. So just send me a message and all of that.
Wow.
And people started reaching out to me, and then I started giving them counseling. And sometimes I would see their job titles and I'm like, I'm not sure I have anything to tell this person. But just by sharing, just by sharing my personal experience and all of that, I realized that I did have a lot to offer. And so from there, I now started something else. And so that's how people started following me, based on that. Not necessarily based on the fact that I was trying to brand myself or be somebody that I wasn't. I was just adding value to professionals. And so that now created some form of visibility.
Wow. Amazing. Got a whole lot of tidbits.
I think what I would leave here with today is, don't brand vapor. On that note, we'll go on a short break. We will be back.
Right.
All right, welcome back, everyone. If you've skipped so many minutes, we've been discussing career growth and how not to be afraid, right? And we have our guest here, Funmi Abiola, has richly blessed us in this episode.
Glory.
And there are so many sound bites, and the conversation has been entirely wonderful. It's been very fantastic. And there are so many takeaways for me here, right? Attitude is one of them. Not branding vapor, building substance is another thing. And I know that Lola has so much as well to say about this episode. So
Lola. I mean, we've talked extensively, and one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that, when it comes to fear, you have to see yourself taking action to overcome that fear. So that's a real takeaway for me. So I think the only thing left to ask now is, based on your own career experience and all that, if somebody is watching this now and saying, wow, okay, I've heard all this, I now need to make changes to ensure that my career gets there. Just in maybe one sentence, what would you tell the person to start doing now? What's that action item that they can put on their journal now that they must do to take action on that?
Ask yourself the right questions. Tell yourself the truth.
Okay.
Don't run away from the truth.
Don't run away.
Yes. Okay. So when you ask yourself the right questions and you answer truthfully, then you understand where you are, where you want to go to, and you start to work towards, the gap, closing the gap.
Yeah. So ask yourself the right question. Wow.
Don't run vapor.
Man, not running vapor. It's like, wow.
Man.
Wow. So what if he produced him? What if he produced him? Yeah.
Well, fantastic one. I wish we could continue, go on and on and on, but
we
again,
have spent time in Funmi Ministries. Glory. We have been in Funmi Ministries.
Yes. I think that if time permits and if there is...
Please, you must come back.
Sure, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Anything for Emmanuel.
Yeah, we're getting a commitment, you see. We just got a commitment to bring her back. When I know that she's a very busy person, but we'll check with her and then see.
Because she's growing her career.
Yeah, so I'm still growing.
We'll find time to bring her. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence.
Thank you so much.
I hope that there is one or two things that viewers out there have been able to pick from this. As you know, I would say repeat it for the third time. Don't brand vapor. Take your career serious. Do an appraisal of yourself. Ask yourself a true question and the hard question as well. These are very vital to your career development, and you need to work on that. It is on that note that I'll be saying a big thank you to the entire team and crew behind the scene, and those of us
Thank
seated
you, everybody.
here. And for the viewers who have watched up till this point, I also hope that you've been able to pick one or two. Till I come your way next week, thank you and bye for now.
See you. And don't forget, we brought this in partnership with Latena.